Chapter 22. Neville, the part-time barman, awoke after an absence of some 11 chapters. Scorning the tried and tested, "Where am I?" he settled for, "Why have I got a light bulb stuck at my left nostril?" which was at least original. His eyes rolled up towards the ceiling, several inches above his face, and a great hand rose to brush away the obstruction blocking one side of his nose. The bed is a bit high, thought Neville, but then the dreadful memories of his most despicable situation came flooding back in a tidal wave of adipose tissue. "Fat," groaned Neville, his voice rumbling up from the depths of his stomach to shiver the ceiling above. "A terrible fat." He tried to move his great St. Paul's dome of a head, but it seemed to be wedged tightly into an upper corner of the tiny hospital room. Painfully he struggled and shifted until he was able to peer down over the great massed army of himself and gauge some idea of how the land lay. It lay some way distant in the downwards direction. Moaned Neville. "Worse, much worse." A sudden sound distracted him from his misery. Somewhere beneath his spreading bulk and slightly to one side, a door appeared to be opening. From his eyrie above the picture rail, Neville watched a minuscule nurse enter the already crowded room. "And how are we today?" asked this fairy person. "We?" Neville's voice arose in desperation. "You mean that there's more than one of me now?" No, the tiny nurse held up a pair of doll-like hands. "You're doing very well, making good progress, great signs of improvement, nothing to fear." Neville now noticed, to his increasing horror, that the midget was brandishing a hypodermic needle, which, although perched between her tiddly digits like a Christmas cracker cigarette holder, looked none the less as threatening as any of the others he had recently experienced at Hyde Quarters. "Time for your daily jab. Roll over, please." "Roll over, you mad woman!" Neville wobbled his jowls down at the nurse. The woman smiled up at him. "Come on now, sir," she wheedled. "We're not going to throw one of our little tantrums now, are we?" If Neville could have freed one of his feet, possibly the one which was now wedged above the curtain rail surrounding his bed, he would have happily stamped the tiny nurse into an omelette. "Come now, sir. Roly-poly." "Crunch, crunch," went Neville. "Fee, fi, fo, fi." "Don't start all that again, sir. I shall have to call for doctor." "Crunch, split." Neville struggled to free a foot or anything. "You leave me no choice, then?" The tiny nurse left the room, slamming the door behind her. Neville rubbed his nose upon the ceiling. "How long have I been here? Days? Months? Years?" He really had no idea. What were they doing to him? Pumping him full of drugs to keep him sedated? What? He had known all along that it was a conspiracy, but what were they up to? They had blown him up like a blimp for their own foul ends, probably for some vile new hormone research designed to increase the bacon yield from porker pigs. It was the Illuminati, or the Masons, or the Moonies, or some such like sinister outfit. Just because he was slightly paranoid, it didn't mean they weren't out to get him. And far worse even, what was happening at the Swan? That defrocked Matlock Croughton would have his hand in the till up to the armpit. The beer would be flat and the ashtrays full. There was even the possibility of after-hours drinking. Omally would see to that. He was probably even downing pints on credit this very moment. It was all too much. He must escape, if only to save his reputation. Neville twisted and turned in his confinement. A latter-day Alice, tormented in a sterilised doll's house. The door of the room flew open beneath him, and the nurse re-entered, accompanied by a pale young doctor in headphones. As Neville watched in fearful anticipation, he withdrew from his belt a small black device bristling with a pair of slim metallic rods. "We're being naughty again," he said, clearing his throat with a curiously mechanical coughing sound and arming the mechanism. "Will we never learn?" Neville, the part-time barman, turned up his eyes and gritted his teeth. "Fee, fi, fo." The pale young man stepped forward and applied the electrodes to Neville's groin. A mind-rending shock of raw pain tore the captive barman's nerve endings to a million ribbons, and he sank once more from consciousness into a blinding red haze of dumb agony.